Yeah, man. So the Baltimore Ravens beat the Chicago Bears. Final score 16-13. I was gonna try to just make a quick video just on the good, the bad, and the ugly of the game. To start off, the good, obviously we won. Because once they said Lamar wasn't gonna play, despite this Bears team not being very good, I heard Lamar not playing, and then also Hollywood wasn't playing, and I said I don't fully know if we're gonna pull it out. But again, I still thought it was possible because again it's a bad team, but like obviously you start to get a little questionable, especially with how things started. Again, like many games this season, they got off to a slow start, so that makes you even more like question. That makes you even more questionable. Like question more if they actually are gonna have what it takes to win the game, but they still pulled it off. So also, now we're 7-3. We're number one in the AFC North. Other AFC North teams are struggling right now. The Browns aren't looking too great. The Steelers, they're looking okay, but they're not looking, like other teams are struggling too. The Steelers, the Bengals, even outside of the AFC, like the Titans just lost to the Texans, the Bills. Like a week or two ago, they lost to the Jaguars, and now like the other day they just got like blown out by the Colts. So like there's other teams in this conference that are also having their struggles too. So to me, that's still a good thing. They forced a fumble. I forgot who it was, but I forgot exactly who it was, but somebody had forced a fumble. I know Calais Campbell recovered the fumble, but somebody had forced it. Justin Houston got a sack, and Tyus Bowser got 2 sacks. So I would love to see Justin Houston hit 130 sacks. Hopefully his son can finally be impressed. But then also Mark Andrews had like that one-handed catch that was pretty cool. That was a very impressive catch. Then also, I think another good thing is the fact that we were playing one of the worst teams in the league, one of the worst offenses in the league, a team that's having a bad coaching situation right now. A coaching situation way worse than us, because I still think we need to fire these coaches. Like I said, I still stand by what I said in a previous video I just did, where I said they need to fire this coaching staff. But yeah, that's pretty much wraps it up for all the good things I wanted to take note of. But as far as the bad things, again, all the things that people like me and other people, other rationally thinking people in the Ravens flock have been bringing up for pretty much the whole season now, they still were present in this game. But again, we just got lucky because Tyler Huntley came through with a really great play, a really good throw, and Sammy had a really good catch to end the game, and then Devontae, ran it in for a touchdown. That was also another good thing I forgot to mention, is Tyler Huntley had like a heroic game-winning drive to end the game. But again, still the same issues are still popping up, man. Greg Roman's still terrible at making calls. This offense still struggles to get off to any sort of rhythm. This defense still sucks. This defense is still giving up big plays. They gave up a 29-yard pass from Fields to Mooney. They gave up a 23-yard pass from Dalton to Graham. They gave up a 60-yard touchdown. That was a screen pass, if I'm not mistaken, from Dalton to Mooney. So again, he threw a pass 1 yard. He threw a pass like 1 yard up, and the guy ran off through the entire Ravens defense. Nobody could tackle him, which again is another point I kept bringing up, that this defense is still struggling to tackle anybody. You gave up, and then after, shortly after that, closer towards the end of the game, you gave up a 49-yard bomb to Andy Dalton and Marquise Goodwin that almost lost the game. Like, there's an argument to be made that had Andy Dalton played the whole game, we would have lost. There's a strong argument to be made. There is a very strong argument to be made for that. Because again, even though Andy Dalton he's washed, at the end of the day, he's somebody who played us many, many times, who's seen our defense before, who knows what it's like to play us. And even though he's washed, like he still has the ability to beat the blitz that was thrown at him in that moment. It was 4th and 11, and you blitzed and left. Who was it guarding? Who was it that was guarding Marquise Goodwin? I think it was Chris Westry or something. Like, you left him on an island, and you paid the price, because you keep paying the price for the same issues. You know, some idiot, some troll who tried to come at me in my last video. He was under this impression that somehow the fact that the Ravens won this game somehow proved him right. No, it didn't. It didn't prove anything that you said was right. Everything that I said was right. Everything that I said was, again, further validated by this game. You still got off to a slow start. That's one of my points. This defense still gives up big plays. That's another one of my points. Like, dude, like, this offensive line still allowed 6 sacks. That's still one of my points. This idiot's talking about, he was trying to say that that game negated my points. No, it didn't. Every one of my points was 100% valid. Was based off of pure logic, pure stats, pure research. But this idiot was in his feelings because he's biased and he doesn't like Lamar Jackson, when in reality Lamar Jackson is the main reason that we have a winning record. I like Tyler Huntley, but I guarantee you if Tyler was the starter this whole year, we would have a 1-9 record. With all due respect, that's just the reality of the situation. Like, Tyler, he's an okay backup, but he is not. This is not some team where you could just plug in anybody and go 14-2, 11-5. That's not how that works. Like, it's fascinating talking to some of these trolls, man. It's just fascinating, because when you approach them with straight logic and completely dice up their argument, they have nothing to say, and then they start resorting to making schoolyard insults like they're 12 years old, which they probably are. So again, like I said, another issue that I also pointed up in my previous video is of why the coaching staff and EDC need to go, is nobody's taking this O-line seriously. Nobody's prioritizing fixing this O-line. This offensive line allowed Tyler Huntley to be sacked 6 times. And that just further proves my point on the value of Lamar, because, again, as much pressure as Lamar faces, Lamar also escapes a lot of pressure too. So Tyler Huntley is still, he's still a mobile guy himself, but again, with all the respect, he's not Lamar Jackson. So that just proves my point further that, hey, you put anybody else in that situation and they're going to end up getting sacked 2-3 times more than Lamar. Lamar was getting sacked on average 3 times a game, which is still bad. And in this game, Tyler got sacked 6 times. This offensive line has allowed 34 sacks in 10 games. That is 3.4 sacks a game. They are on pace to allow about roughly 59 sacks. If they stay on the pace they're on right now, they would allow 59 sacks more or less by the end of the season. That is embarrassing. So, and then as far as I got through the good and the bad. As far as the ugly, something that I thought was kind of funny was that Calais Campbell injury. That's not really the ugly, but I just thought that was a funny moment where he wanted to avoid the penalty, so he just dropped to the ground and just faked an injury. But something else that is more serious, obviously, is that the hardest part of our schedule starts now. We have 5 division games, and then a game against the Rams, and then a game against the Packers. That is how we're gonna end our season. We have no more games against bad teams. Regardless of how much Cleveland is struggling, Cleveland is a better team than the Chicago. They are a better team. They have more talent, and they are more capable of winning games. They are more capable of putting up points. They've had games this season where they've had multiple games this season where they've put up 40 plus points. Regardless of their struggles, they are a team that has a lot of talent on offense and talent on defense. And then again, then we got to go play Pittsburgh. Then we got to go play Cleveland again. Then we got to go play the Rams, a team that loaded. And then the Packers, like, and you have a lot of Ravens fans, like half of the Ravens flock, they're gonna try to use this opportunity. They're gonna use this game as some sort of justification as to why this coaching staff deserves credit. Like I seen somebody, they just posted something saying, "Oh, this coaching staff deserves credit for their success." No, that's not something you could say when you barely beat a really bad team. Now, had this been a game without Lamar Jackson against, a top conference team, a top division team, I would have then been like, yeah, give him credit. But you can't give them credit because they barely beat a Chicago Bears team that's doing terrible, that has even worse coaching. You can't what's the point of giving them credit for that? That's ridiculous. And it doesn't mean I have hatred for these people, that I don't respect them as humans, but it just means, hey, look, these guys are not that good as you're advertising for them. If they, like, the point I keep trying to make is the fact that if they're allowing these sort of things to happen against bad teams, what do you think will happen when we play back to back good teams? They've given up major plays on the defensive side of the ball 9 out of 10 games this year. You gave up big plays to Darren Waller and Henry Renfrow and those guys, and Derek Carr and those guys during the Raiders game. You gave up a 40-yard touchdown to Brian Pringle in the Chiefs game. You gave up a 46-yard touchdown to Travis Kelce in the Chiefs game. You gave, like, come on, man. You were giving a big, you were giving up big yards in the freaking Lions game, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, maybe not the Lions game. Oh, maybe there was. I can't remember off the top of my head. But still, the point I'm trying to make is, like, 80 to 90% of the game so far, they've given up big yards. You've given up 50-yard touchdowns to Justin Jefferson. You've given up 82-yard touchdowns to Jamar Chase. You've given up, you just in this Bears game, you allowed 2 receivers on the Bears to have 100 receiving yards on you. This defense, people are gonna look at the score and say, "Oh, they only held them to 13 points." Yeah, you held them to 13 points because you played a bad team that didn't have the veteran in the whole game. Even though Justin Fields is the future, like, he's getting close, but he's not there just yet. And Andy Dalton has more experience with the Ravens. There's a strong argument to be made that had you kept Andy in the whole game, they could have pulled it out, man. You allowed 2 receivers to get 100 receiving yards on you in this game. Over and over and over again, the common theme throughout the season is they keep allowing these massive plays to come out. Over and over and over again. You don't think that's going to come back and bite you in the butt? You don't think that? You want to know the even in the Colts game, they allowed Jonathan Taylor to get like that 76-yard touchdown. You remember that? Then in the Dolphins game, you allowed a 50-yard. You allowed Jacoby Brissett to get a 50-yard pass on you, then a 35-yard pass on you. Then you allowed Tua to come in. He got a 64-yard pass on you. He got, like, come on, dog. Time and time again, even against bad teams, you're giving up these monster plays. When you play better teams, do you think that those opportunities are gonna just go? They're just gonna go without. They're just gonna go. You think those opportunities aren't going to be taken advantage of by better teams? When you play, again, you got to, like, yeah, you held a bad team to 13 points, but you didn't hold them back as far as getting yards on you. You didn't hold them back as far as protecting your quarterback from their defensive line. You didn't hold them back from these things. When you play better teams, what do you think is going to happen? When you're giving up big plays to no-name receivers on the Dolphins and no-name receivers on the Bears, what do you think's going to happen if you play the Rams and you give up big yards to Odell Beckham Jr. and Cooper Kupp? What do you think is going to happen when you play the Browns and you give up big plays to David Njoku and Jarvis Landry? What do you think is going to happen when you give up big plays to Jamar Chase? Well, we already know what's going to happen because it already happened a few weeks ago. He had 200 yards against you. What do you think is gonna happen when you give up big plays to Deontay Johnson or Chase Claypool? What do you think is gonna happen when you give up big plays like this and you got to deal with Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams? Like, what do you think is gonna happen? That's the point people like me keep bringing up. When you keep having these clear issues that the coaches refuse to address and refuse to adjust to, once you start playing better teams, what do you think is gonna happen? They're gonna take advantage of it. See, the Bears aren't good enough right now to take advantage of the big plays that they got. Well, to fully take advantage of it. But guess what? The Browns, despite their struggle, they are good enough to take advantage of it. Now, am I saying they're gonna beat the? Now, am I saying the Browns are gonna beat us? No, I'm not necessarily saying that. I still think we could win pretty much all of these games. I still think it's possible, especially if Lamar is back. But at the same time, you need to. There's nothing wrong with being worried about these things because, again, these are big issues that the coaches refuse to address. They refuse to adjust to. And EDC refuses to make the necessary moves to fill up the holes within the roster. And you can't just use injuries as an excuse, because even if Patrick McCarvey and Ronnie Stanley weren't dealing with injuries or whatever, this offensive line was still going to be bad. Ronnie Stanley, if he was healthy, he still would have been the only good lineman on this offense. The rest of the offensive line is terrible. Nobody's addressing that. So, I mean, look, I'm going to leave it at that, man. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. How do you feel about this win? Do you think it was a good team win, an ugly win? What do you think it was? Do you think it was a great win? Do you think it was a statement win? And what also, how do you think we're going to do for the rest of the season? I still think that it's very possible for us to be about 13-4. That was my prediction at the beginning of the season. But let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below.